In today's video, I am going to be ranking my favorite anime dubs of all time. I'm anime voice actor Brent Mukai. Maybe you've heard my work as Scratchman Apu in One Piece, or Gyoko in Demon Slayer, or even Dragon's Dream in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I've also been in Attack on Titan and Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s and Pokemon. You get the idea. I'm not only going to be sharing my favorite dub, I'm also going to be discussing my favorite performance in the dub. The one actor or actress that I thought really made the dub stand out as special to me. Let's get started. Am I yelling too much? I'm sorry. Okay, first honorable mention here. We have, of course, the show Inuyasha. This may come as a shock to some people, but I grew up in the Adult Swim Toonami era, and it was impossible not to catch Inuyasha. It was playing 5 times a night when I was in high school in 2006. And I gotta admit, at first, it was just okay, I'll put it on as white noise as I play a game on my Game Boy Advance. But I soon realized this show is really freaking good. I love these characters. For those of you who haven't watched it, it's a fun show with basically a villain of the week, and our small group of protagonists have to battle the evil Naraku and all the demons that he sends. To me, the MVP, the MVA of this show, Kagome, played by Monica Story and Kira Tozer for the final act, and then in Yasuhime, Kira Tozer also plays her. Kagome, in my opinion, is one of my favorite female characters in anime. I think she's kind, she's merciful, but she's not a pushover. Plus, she stays relevant and powerful throughout the whole show. Sometimes in animes, the female character kind of falls off a little bit, you know? In this show, Kagome stays central. And I know the show's called Inuyasha, but really, in my opinion, it's Kagome's show. She's a high school student, you know, she works at this temple in the real world, and then she gets transferred and isekai'd over to a new world. A world with demons and monsters and all this stuff, and she's the reincarnation of a blah, 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 blah. But what makes this performance so great is that Kagome is such a complex character who has to be able to play all these different emotions. And I think what I like most is that even though she is very kind, she has this powerful voice. Monica Story did a phenomenal job of just giving this character depth and power. It's easy for a voice to be almost too pushovery. When you see high school girl in a world of demons, it's okay, well, you know, she's the odd one out here, right? Everybody else super powerful, but she has this intelligence and this power to her that I really, really enjoyed. Looking into this, I was kind of shocked. I didn't know who Monica Story was. I tried looking into her a little bit. Apparently she just retired and just said, I'm done with voice acting. Good for you, Monica. Wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. The whole cast is really, really great. And I think that the fact that it was a smaller cast of the main characters, you know, because sometimes animes could have 40 characters that are all sort of always in the mix, right? The fact that it was sort of these 5, this core 5, that was sort of the main characters throughout the series, I think helped it. Next up, maybe my shirt has spoiled it, My Hero Academia. Yep. I really think that even if you hate on this show, even if it's a show you liked before and you're now it's fallen off a little bit, regardless of what you think of the show, there's a reason why this was so popular. Why everybody at every con had a My Hero Academia costume on, you know, their little school uniform. I feel like from whenever the show got started, 2016 to even today, you still see some people walking around with it. It was popular. Now, part of it is the story and the elements. You know, America, we love superheroes. We also love anime now, and it was the perfect combination and mix. But I really think the fact that the dub was so stinking good from the very beginning had a lot to do with why this show got popular. For a lot of kids growing up, I bet that this was their Naruto. I was 17 when I started watching Naruto. My friend Joe Pexon, shout out Joe, he was you gotta check out this show. I was watching it on YouTube. I was oh, okay. And that was my gateway into the world of anime. I feel that a lot of younger people, this was that show for them. I could be wrong, but it was so widely popular, and I saw so many small little kids dressing up as the characters that it just felt like a good gateway anime. To be honest, my MVP, my MVA, very tough because it is such a stellar cast. I think Colleen Clinkenbeard does such a good job with this show. My MVA, most valuable actor, easy, Justin Briner. Justin Briner as Deku. To my knowledge, if this was not his first role, this was definitely his breakout role. And now obviously Justin's doing all kinds of great work. He's like a name in the voice acting community. I think he absolutely kills it. There's this warmth that he has to his voice.
This is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero. But not just me. It's the story of how we all became the greatest of heroes.
Now, of course, All Might is stellar in this as well, and it's really the combination of the two of them that sort of make the early part of My Hero Academia so great. But Deku changes a lot. You know, he goes from wimpy dweeb to confident dweeb. I'm just kidding. But he has this drive, and he also has this full range of emotions that honestly is a lot of crying. Deku cries a lot. Come on, you gonna argue with me that Deku cries a lot? He cries a lot. And that's not easy to pull off. That's not easy to do believably, and I believe Justin every single time. Say what you want about My Hero Academia. When I first watched this show, when it first came out, I was blown away. I watched the sub first, and then I loved it so much, I went back and watched the dub, because I was like, that was when I was kind of starting to get into voice acting, and I was like, oh man, I'd really like to do this one day. I should start listening to dubs more. I listened to My Hero Academia because I thought it was just the best at the time. I thought it was so great. The whole cast, so fun. Coming in at number 5. Whoop! You know it, you love it. It's Demon Slayer. I'm in it. Did I mention I play Gyoko? I play this guy right here. Look at him. Look at this little fun boy. To me, it is the king of the modern dub era. The whole cast is incredible, especially Gyoko. I mean, there's so many incredible performances in this show. I could go on and on and on, however I won't, because my pick for MVP is obviously Tanjiro. Zack kills it. A show like this is dependent on the main character really being likable. And in a similar way to Justin and Deku, I think Zack just nails it. I can't even put my finger on why I like Tanjiro so much, but when I first heard this dub, I was like, I'm rooting for this character. This was another show that I watched the first season of, loved it so much I went back and rewatched the dub, and then later got to be in it. Funny how life works, huh? There's so much action in this show. Zack nails all of the fighting sequences. He nails all of the desperation in those moments. He ups the stakes so high. And Demon Slayer is just, it's just one of the best shows out right now. It's so easy for a protagonist character, the main character, to kind of get bland. And throughout the story, sort of just become this like, oh, I'm just the good guy. I'm always gonna do the right thing, and now look at me, I'm so holy and pure. And I think if you don't have a phenomenal voice actor at the helm of a character like that, it can get really tiresome after a while. But Zack somehow manages to make me feel so invested for this character and what is going on. And partially it's, the writing, and it's an incredible show on its own. But for those of you who have never done anime voice acting, you don't have a lot of time to get into it. And for the high intensity moments, because there are a lot of high intensity moments to this show, whether it's high intensity action, high intensity emotion, high intensity comedy, and they're all just always executed perfectly. I love this dub. I've loved this dub. I'm not just saying that because I'm in the dub. I've really enjoyed the hell out of this show since before I even got a chance to audition for it. Demon Slayer is my pick for number 5. Number 4! But ultimately, Hunter x Hunter. I know it's supposed to be Hunter x Hunter. People have told me that. But there's an X there, and I like to say the X. I've been saying it since before people told me. Hunter x Hunter. This show can get mistaken for, it's just typical shonen. It is what it is. It's whatever. But the depth to this show is incredible. the way the characters interact, the way the storylines interweave, the fact that the main crew splits up after a certain point, and then it kind of comes in here and there as they, come back together, but everybody kind of does their own thing. The world building in this show is absolutely insane. And I think the core staple of this show is its characters, which when you're dubbing makes it extremely hard to cast all the right people for so many freaking characters, and yet somehow they really did it. They really cast perfectly. I think we all know who the MVA is here, right? Hisoka. Hands down, best character in the show. He's the most dynamic. Whenever he's on screen, he's a huge scene stealer. But it's like crazy to me because on paper, Hisoka is so many things that you would dislike in a character. And yet he's so charismatic, you don't even care that he's yelling out a small boy's name sexually. That's not the right way to put it, but we all know what I'm saying. They make this sexual joke as he's yelling out Gon. It's like a meme.
I just can't wait to break you.
And yes, he is phenomenally written. And it's easy to just say, well, okay, yeah, anybody could have done it. The character's such a well-written character, anybody could have played it. Wrong! It's very easy to mess up this guy. He has to sound intelligent at all points, but also threatening at all points, but also so likable and charismatic at all points. It's this gentle wire balancing act. And Keith Silverstein? I didn't look up any of the names, but I believe it's Keith Silverstein. Just does this character perfectly, to the T. He pulls off everything that the Japanese actor needed to do to make the show a success. And in my opinion, he is a make or break character for this show. If you don't have somebody that you like, you might find Hisoka appalling. And you might want to stop watching the show. A lot of people told me my Gyoko sounds like Hisoka, and a lot of people thought that Gyoko was played by Keith Silverstein. To be honest, I watched this dub so much, I'm sure that a lot of the Hisoka attitudes and acting style kind of rubbed off on me as I was doing Gyoko. Kind of a similar style of character, highly intelligent, devious also, but there has to be some kind of core likability to the character, otherwise it's like, why are we watching this, That I hope I brought. Anyways, Hunter x Hunter, so good. Hey, are you enjoying this video I'm making? Leave a like and hit the subscribe button below, because I desperately need it. Back to the video! Next one. This will be of surprise to nobody, I'm sure. That's right, we're doing it. It's Cowboy Bebop. Picture this. It's 2006. I'm in high school. Get back home from hanging out with my friends at the mall. I start playing my little, whether it's a PS Vita or just the old school DS, Nintendo DS. And what do you hear come on in the background? The song alone is so hype, gets you right in. But then you start watching the show. And I admit, at 16, it was a more mature show than I gave it credit for at the time. I liked bright colors, I liked fun, adventurous shows, but this show always caught my attention. And a large part of it was because of the voice cast. I compare it a lot to Inuyasha, because they had a smaller voice cast. I mean, just titans of the industry, right? I mean, who doesn't love Wendy Lee as Valentine, Faye Valentine? Anyway, I'm leading up into it. We all know the MVA. It's Spike. It's gotta be Spike. Who doesn't love Spike? Such a great character, so fun. He's got this laid-back attitude. I mean, this man's in a space sci-fi film noir doing kung fu. What's not to love? What part of that sentence did you not enjoy? Steve Blum? I've heard both. I've heard people say Steve Blum, Steve Bloom. I mean, for anybody who grew up in this era, was there anybody who had a cooler voice? For the love of God, on Toonami, they would play. He was the voice of the little guy on Toonami. Steve is the voice of like a generation. And now that I'm a voice actor, I have so much respect for his work. Because the cast was so small, it was extremely important that everybody pulled their weight and every single person did. But as the main character of the show, Spike has to be perfect. And he's not your common anime protagonist. There's a lot of stuff he does that's very unlikable, but at no point do you stop liking him. He's this morally gray kind of character, but you do get this sense that he's always on the side of what he believes is right. And ultimately, the whole show is his story. The movie itself was also exceptional. This right here is around the time that I think there was a shift in the quality of the dubs that were being made. And I think that everything that came before it, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the really, really early 2000s dubs, I think people started getting really great at the craft of acting in them. I think the direction around it became better. I think people at this point, this was like a major turning point in what dubs could be. And Cowboy Bebop is, in my opinion, a work of art, a masterpiece in the anime sphere. Anyways, moving on. Number 2. This might be a shock to everyone. Fooly Cooley. Furikuri. Let me first off say, it's so hard to do comedy. Period. End of sentence. But to translate comedy from another language and then dub words and jokes to another language, that's hard. That makes it like hard mode. That makes it like super advanced mode. And for the amount of comedy, goofball, oddball, off the wall comedy that Fooly Cooley brings, I mean, we have fourth wall breaks, right? Like Deadpool style. We have animation changes, and every single freaking actor in this nails it. They just nail it. And for my money, it was too tough to choose one most valuable actor, so I chose 2. Obviously, Haruhara Haruko by Kerry Walgren. And Kerry Walgren's great. I mean, she's in everything. She's still so relevant in the industry. She's incredible. You know, she's in like Rick and Morty and stuff. The whole show is really driven by her. And if you just looked on paper, her character's kind of a huge asshole, but she plays it with so much charm and likability. I feel like I'm saying everybody has charm and likability. What Kerry did different is she is so freaking funny in this. It's high action, it's high stakes. She can play huge and humongous and hilarious just as well as she can play small and grounded, and it's just a slam dunk performance, and it needed to be. I mean, she's not the main character of the show, but she drives all of the action of the show. Oh, this is one of my favorite animes of all time, Fooly Cooley is. I've loved it ever since I was in high school. If you haven't noticed, a lot of this list is sheer nostalgia. As it should be. As a lot of my favorite things should be. But who shares in the MVA moment with Kerry? Stephanie Sheh as Mamimi. I didn't even know that this character was played by Stephanie Sheh until I just started digging into this video. I didn't know the other character was Kerry Walgren either. I was like, what? Kerry was doing anime? I thought she was just cartoons. For those of you who've never watched the show, I won't get into it too much and give any spoilers away, but Mamimi is this tragic character. She's a high schooler who has 0 friends in high school, and really her only friend is this like middle school or elementary school kid that she just sort of hangs around and makes like sexual jokes and stuff and like goofs around with him to make him feel uncomfortable, to make herself laugh. But she's just this kind of character who's just sort of sailing through life. And I think we all kind of know somebody who's like that, right? Maybe even somebody that we really cherish and love that just sort of doesn't have a lot of ambition, doesn't really care about a lot of things, doesn't have a lot of passions, doesn't really want much, and it's kind of heartbreaking. This performance touched me. I mean, on so many levels, because it felt like I knew so many people like Mamimi. And I was in high school at the time. And I was this guy who was always full of dreams and full of passion. And I wanted to do something new and something different. And I had a different dream every single week. And I didn't understand how people didn't have that. But I knew tons of people who didn't. Tons of people that I really, really cared about and loved. And Mamimi just struck this chord. And the performance is just incredibly grounded and real and raw. And I mean, just hats off to Stephanie Sheh. Like, if it really came down to it, Mamimi is probably my favorite character in Fooly Cooly, which is insane to say because she's not even like a main character in every single episode, I don't think. It's only 6 episodes long. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor, check this show out. This was so good, I switched it because it was going to be number 3 on my list, and I thought about it more and more, and as I kept writing, I realized this had to go number 2. There was no other spot for it. I also just had this crazy flashback memory. On Adult Swim, they played this like featurette, a behind the scenes of the recording of Fooly Cooly and how they all kind of put it together. And they had Kerry and Stephanie, and I had no idea who these people were at the time. Now I do, because I'm in the industry. I've actually worked with Stephanie a couple times. I think she's wonderful. I love her. She is an incredible artist that I learn something from every time that I get to work with her. But I saw this featurette, and watching that featurette, the behind the scenes of Fooly Cooly, made me start thinking, oh, I kind of would love to do that. Being a voice actor sounds like fun. It was what kind of got the wheels turning a little bit. So this show had a huge impact on my life. And before I started One Piece, this was my favorite anime of all time. Fooly Cooly is a gem. It just is. It's 6 episodes long. Give it a watch. I haven't watched season 2, to be honest. I'm just so afraid of messing with my own nostalgia and how much I loved the show. The original show back in the day, you know, that it makes me a little bit afraid. I think there's 3 seasons out even. Or maybe I'm just crazy. But I know for sure there's 2 seasons out. This show is special, and it's worth a watch. Moving on to the number 1. The dub that I think is the best dub. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Just what a show on its own, right? But this cast really kind of felt like a changing of the guard. Came out sort of in the late 2000s-ish. And when I first watched this, the reason why this dub is at the top of my list is because of all the animes that I have listed here. I've talked about how well the voice actors have come in and represented these characters and made them their own, and it's on even par with the sub, with the actual Japanese voice actors. This might be the one dub where I like the dub better than the sub, completely. It's not even. I think this edges it out a little bit. And the reason for that is very simple. Of all the performances in this show, of which there are many, I didn't even know Troy Baker was in this show. Yeah, that Troy Baker was in Full Metal Alchemist. I didn't even know he did anime first. But that's not who I'm talking about. Today I'm talking about this man, Führer Bradley. King Bradley. Played by a man many of you probably have never heard of, Ed Blaylock. Many of you probably don't know this man because he unfortunately passed away in 2017. His portrayal of King Bradley was astonishing to me because King Bradley has all of these moments with his family, with, Al and Ed, where he's friendly. And he's just this nice man. He's just this nice dad of a man. But then you see what he really is. And I think a question underneath it all is like, how much of this is, how much of it is the twist of what he is? I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't watched it. How much of his life is a fabrication and how much of his life is real? And when you find it out and, find out who he is really, like what this character really is, it's insane. And the acting is terrifying. His fight with Scar is like some of the best. I've watched that fight so many times over the years. Sometimes YouTube will just suggest it to me randomly, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's watch it. And it popped up for me a few days ago, and I watched it again, and that was sort of the inspiration for this video. You may not know Ed Blaylock because he didn't honestly do a lot. If you read here, he was actually a weekday evening announcer for a radio station. So, voice acting anime was not his main thing. He was Sengoku in One Piece, which is huge. He was in Attack on Titan as one of the mayors. Overlord, Puzzle and Dragons, Date Alive, Tokyo Ghoul. Like, there's all this stuff, right? Oh, he was also Jose Porla in Fairy Tail. I watched all of Fairy Tail in sub. I looked up specifically the dub for this part just so that I could hear his voice, just to see what he did with it. And it made me wish he had had a bigger part in Fairy Tail, because I was a huge fan of this guy. I think that his performance is one of the best in all of anime. His voice is so unique, but it's not just his voice, the acting. The way the fight scenes are, it sounds brutal, and that's him selling it. I was just getting into voice acting around 2016, and when I found out that this guy had passed away, I was so sad because I had wanted to meet him at some point to tell him thanks for his work, and that it really touched me, that it really, showed me that you could make a dub sound really good. I'm tearing up a little bit. I don't even know why. I was a huge fan of this guy's work, and he didn't even know that I existed, but I wanted to honor him. So I dedicate this whole video in memory of Ed Blaylock, because his performance really hit me. And King Bradley is one of my favorite characters in all of anime, not because of the writing or any other reason other than I love the way that this man portrayed him. I mean, the writing was great. King Bradley is a great character, don't get me wrong. Now that I'm rewatching One Piece in the dub with my fiance, I cannot wait to hear Sengoku because of this guy. Now I'm just droning on. Ed, wherever you are, buddy, I hope you're at peace, and I hope you know that your work was respected more than you may have known. I'd love to know your takes on your favorite anime dubs. Leave a comment below, leave a like, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching.